My name is Cassidy Monroe, and I was 35 years old the morning a stranger in a grocery store turned my entire life upside down. I wasn't looking for anything that day. I was doing what I always did on Saturday mornings, moving through the aisles of Riverside Market on the west side of Portland, Oregon, with a list in my hand and absolutely zero drama in my plans. Almond milk. Sourdough bread. That pasta sauce my coworker had told me about twice and I kept forgetting to grab. My cart was neat. My earbuds were in. My Saturday was locked down. And then a woman tapped my shoulder. She was maybe 65, white hair pulled back, the kind of warm face that makes you think of school librarians or the neighbor who always has an extra umbrella. She was smiling at me like we already knew each other. We didn't. "Your little one is just adorable," she said. I pulled out one earbud. "I'm sorry." "Your daughter." She nodded past me, still smiling. "She's been following you since the cereal aisle." I figured she was just being shy. I turned around. There was a little girl standing maybe 5 feet behind me. 5, maybe 6 years old. Dark brown hair pulled into 2 lopsided pigtails, the kind a kid does herself because nobody helped her that morning. Purple shirt with a cat on it. She was holding a stuffed animal pressed against her chest like her life depended on it. She wasn't crying. She wasn't scared. She was just watching me. With this look I honestly cannot explain, except to say it knocked the breath straight out of me. 'Cause I knew that face. Not her. I had never seen this child before. But that jaw, those eyes, the way her head tilted just slightly to the right when she was trying to figure something out. I had seen that tilt in photographs. In old albums sitting on a shelf in my mom's house. On a face I had not seen in person in almost 6 years. My sister Clara's face. The little girl took 3 small steps forward and held out her stuffed animal, a beat-up yellow rabbit with one ear flopping sideways. And then she said the 7 words that split my life into before and after. "Are you almost done?" "I'm hungry." She said it easy. Comfortable. Like I was someone she had said it to 1,000 times and expected to say yes. Hey, if you've ever had a moment where a stranger said something so small it changed everything, drop a "found her" in the comments right now. And tell me what city you're watching from. I want to know who's here with me tonight. Her name was Rosie. I found this out from her foster caregiver, a woman named Gail Ferris, who came rushing around the corner about 2 minutes later, breathless, embarrassed, a jar of peanut butter still in her hand. Gail was late 50s, ponytail, the kind of person who had done this job long enough to stay steady under pressure but was not fully steady right now. "She slipped away when I stopped to check a label," Gail said, reaching for Rosie's hand. "She does this sometimes. Finds someone and just follows." Rosie didn't take Gail's hand. She was still looking at me. "I'm so sorry," Gail said quietly. "She lost her mom 3 months ago. She's been..." "It's okay," I said. My voice came out lower than I expected. "Is it all right if I get her something to eat?" She said she was hungry. Gail looked at me. Then she looked at Rosie. Then back at me. And her face did this complicated thing I could not quite read. "You two look," she stopped herself. Shook her head. "Sorry. That's not my place to say." But that was the second time in 3 minutes that someone had looked at me and this child and stopped mid-sentence. And I was a financial fraud investigator. I worked for a firm called Meridian Analytics in downtown Portland. My whole job was noticing the thing nobody could finish saying. I bought Rosie a juice box and a small bag of pretzels at the checkout. We sat on the bench outside the store while Gail stepped away to make a call. Rosie ate her pretzels one by one, very deliberately, and kept her rabbit on her knee. "What's his name?" I asked, nodding at the rabbit. "Biscuit." She held him up so I could see his face. "He goes everywhere with me." "That's a solid name." She looked at me sideways. "What's your name?" "Cassidy." She thought about it. My mom's name started with a C too. Clara. The bench felt like it moved under me. I put my feet flat on the sidewalk and held still. That's a really pretty name, I said. She nodded. Then she flipped Biscuit over and pointed to a little fabric tag hand-sewn into his belly. Written in black marker that had faded some. Rosie Monroe. 503-555-0247. My last name. Monroe. The same last name I had carried my entire life. Listen. In my job, I have sat across from executives who hid money for 8 years and thought they got away with it. I know what it feels like when a number shows up somewhere it has no business being. I know the specific feeling in your chest when a pattern clicks into place and tells you something you weren't prepared to hear. That fabric tag was a number that should not have been there. And I already knew what it meant. Stay with me. Because what I found when I got home that afternoon, that's where this story really starts. I drove to my office that afternoon even though it was Saturday. I know. But I needed to think somewhere that wasn't my apartment, and I think better when I have a big monitor and something to write on. Meridian Analytics was on the 5th floor of a building on S.W. Morrison Street. I had been there for 7 years, made senior investigator 3 years ago. My desk was clean. My files were sorted by color and date. I had built a small, organized life out of the kind of focus that gets real loud when everything else is quiet. I sat down, stared at the wall for about 5 minutes. Then I dialed the number from Biscuit's tag. Disconnected. Reverse lookup gave me a name. Clara Monroe. Last address, Maple View Drive, Beaverton, Oregon. 14 minutes from where I was sitting. I typed her name into a search engine. Third result. An obituary. The Oregonian online dated 9 weeks earlier. Clara N. Monroe, age 38. Survived by her mom, Patricia Monroe of Lake Oswego, Oregon. Services held privately. No public memorial. No children listed. Not one word about a daughter. I read it twice. Then I called my mom. No answer. Called my brother Garrett. He picked up on the second ring with the TV loud in the background. He always had something on. Hey Cass, what's up? Did you know Clara had a daughter? A pause. Not a quick one. A long one. Where did you hear that? Answer the question, Garrett. TV got quieter. He had walked into another room. Mom said she was taking care of it. I looked at the ceiling of my office. How long have you known? Cass. How long, Garrett? A beat. About 2 months. Mom got a call from the county. She said she would handle it and told us to stay out of it. 2 months. I said it slow, the way I say numbers out loud in depositions when I need the other person to really hear them. Our sister died 9 weeks ago. She had a 5-year-old in foster care. And nobody called me. Silence. I hung up. If you are watching this and your family has ever kept something from you that you had every right to know, drop a single word in the comments. Just one word. You don't have to explain it. I'll understand. Before I tell you what happened next, I need to tell you something about Clara. Because she deserves more than 4 sentences in an obituary that didn't even mention her kid. Clara was 3 years older than me. She was the kind of person who collected things that needed help. Stray animals, people going through hard times, causes nobody else was paying attention to. She volunteered at a reading program for years and never told anyone because she thought announcing the good things you did made them smaller. She had this thing where she made up words. Private words just for people she loved. She called me Birch. Not like the tree, it started as a joke version of a word she wasn't supposed to say when we were teenagers, after our mom grounded her for something she didn't even do, and she said the whole situation was a load of birch, and I laughed until I couldn't breathe. The name stuck. Only she ever used it. We were close the way sisters get when they're both trying to survive the same house. Our mom, Patricia Monroe, was a woman who treated image the way most people treat air, necessary at all times, non-negotiable. She was from Lake Oswego, married my dad Robert, who passed away when I was 17, and spent the years after making sure every person in her circle believed she had a perfect family. Clara complicated that. I didn't know how much or why until I started pulling the thread. Caseworker's name was Monica Price. She had the calm, steady voice of someone who has delivered hard news in so many different ways that she found a tone that works for most of them. She confirmed what I had already figured out. Rosie Monroe, age 5, was in emergency foster care following the death of her mom, Clara Monroe. No dad listed on the birth certificate. The state had notified next of kin 10 weeks ago. "I'd like to request a DNA test," I said. "I believe I'm this child's biological aunt." A pause. "Ms. Monroe, are you aware that we reached out to Patricia Monroe 10 weeks ago, and she confirmed the family relationship and said she would handle outreach to extended family?" I pressed my thumbnail into my palm, an old habit from college exams. "I'm aware she confirmed it. I'm not aware of any outreach to me." "I see," Monica said carefully. "How soon can we arrange the test?" The results came back in 5 days. "I want to be straight with you. I had hoped. But hope is not evidence, and I do not put weight on anything without documentation." The report said what numbers say when they stop lying. Aunt and niece. Probability of biological relationship, greater than 99.7%. Rosie was Clara's daughter. Clara had a little girl. My sister had raised a child for 5 years and I had never known any of it. I sat at my desk holding that paper and I didn't move for about 8 minutes. And then I cried. Not the controlled kind. The ugly, chest-locked kind I hadn't done since my dad's funeral. 'Cause the numbers couldn't be argued with now. My sister had been alive, raising a baby in a house 14 minutes from my office. She had been sick and scared. She had died. And I had not known one word of it. I cried for Clara. I cried for Rosie. And if I'm being real, I cried a little for myself, for the niece I had missed 6 years of, for the sister I thought had chosen distance, for every Sunday I didn't call because my mom said she needed space and I, like a fool, believed her. Then I wiped my face. Poured a glass of water. Then my laptop. Column A, what I know. Column B, what I still need. Column C, what somebody doesn't want me to find. Column C was new. Turned out to be the most important one. Don't go anywhere. 'Cause what's in column C is what this whole story has been building toward. And the people who thought I wouldn't look? They were about to have a very bad week. First supervised visit was the following Thursday. The room was standard, fluorescent lights, scuffed plastic chairs, a table with old scratch marks, a big window so the caseworker could watch from the next room. I brought juice boxes and a pack of animal crackers because I genuinely did not know what 5-year-olds liked and those seemed like a safe guess. Rosie walked in with Biscuit tucked under her arm. She saw me, stopped, and then walked straight across that room and climbed into the chair next to mine like she was coming back to a seat she had already claimed. She opened the animal crackers without asking and ate a lion. "My mom used to buy these," she said. "Yeah." She said lions were for brave days. She ate another one, calm as anything. "I have a lot of brave days now." I looked at this 5-year-old sitting beside me, matter-of-factly describing the kind of strength it takes to keep going after your whole world falls apart, and I thought, Clara, you raised her exactly right. Halfway through the visit, Rosie held Biscuit out to me. "You hold him," she said. I took the rabbit and felt the little fabric tag under my fingers. Rosie Monroe. "Your mom sewed this in?" I asked. She said if I ever got lost, somebody would call. She paused. Nobody called. "I know, baby." My throat was tight. "But I found you anyway." She looked at me with Clara's eyes and said, plain as day, "How come you didn't come before?" And there it was. Question I had no clean answer for. I told her the truth in the only way that made sense for a kid her age. "I didn't know about you yet. But I know now. And I'm not going anywhere. She thought about that. Then she held out an animal cracker. Elephant, she said. Those are for people who need a friend. I ate the elephant. I need you to hit that like button right now if you're feeling this. This little girl carrying all of that and still thinking about someone else's feelings. Keep watching. Gets heavier before it gets lighter. Now I need to tell you about my brother's wife. Denise and Garrett had been married 3 years. She was organized in that specific way where you can tell a lot of planning went into looking natural, and she had a gift, and I say this as someone who still loves her brother, for making self-interest sound like a favor she was doing you. They showed up at my apartment on a Wednesday night, no warning, no call ahead. Garrett had the look he had as a kid when our mom had already told him what to say. Denise had a smile ready, too wide, too polished, too prepared. We've been thinking, Denise said, sitting down on my couch like she'd been there 100 times when she had actually been there twice. About Rosie. About what makes the most sense going forward. Tell me, I said. She did. The spare bedroom they had just fixed up. The neighborhood. The school district, which she mentioned 4 times in about 5 minutes. 2 incomes, 2 parents, lots of stability. She made it sound very thoughtful, very generous. And then she said the thing that told me exactly what this visit was really about. And of course, someone needs to handle Clara's estate. The house in Beaverton, it's paid off as I understand it. The life insurance too. It would simplify everything if the person who has Rosie is also coordinating all of that. Silence. Garrett studied the carpet. I have spent years reading financial documents where people hid what they really wanted under 3 or 4 layers of sensible-sounding words. I know what it looks like when someone buries the real point. The house, I said. We're talking about what's best for Rosie. Sure. How many times did you visit Clara when she was sick? Denise's smile did something complicated. How many doctor's appointments did you drive her to? How many nights did you stay with Rosie so Clara could rest? Garrett said nothing. That's what I thought, I said. They stayed another 15 minutes. In that entire visit, Denise mentioned the school district 4 times and the house 3 times. She mentioned what Rosie liked to eat exactly once. She never once asked what Rosie herself wanted. I walked them to the door. I did not tell them what was in column C. I also didn't mention that I had already called an attorney. Her name was Rachel Okafor. Family Law, Portland. 3 different judges I had worked with on fraud cases had said the same thing about her. Direct, thorough, and she doesn't lose things she should win. She charged $450 an hour. I could afford it because I had been saving money since I was 20 like it was something I could win. Rachel filed my petition for temporary guardianship on a Thursday afternoon. The following Monday she called me. Her voice had shifted a little, still direct but careful in a new way. Cassidy, there's already a petition filed. I sat down at my kitchen table. Garrett and Denise? Filed 8 days ago. Supporting character reference submitted by, a pause. Your mom. My mom. The woman who had known about Rosie for 10 weeks. The woman who had sat across from me at my cousin's birthday dinner a month ago and said nothing. The woman who had filed an obituary for Clara that didn't list a daughter. That same woman had gone into a courthouse and told a judge I was too emotionally closed off to raise my dead sister's child. Garrett and Denise's filing called me, professionally consumed, socially withdrawn, and lacking the warmth needed for the long-term emotional care of a child in trauma. I asked Rachel one question. Is there anything in Clara's estate papers, a will, a guardianship letter, anything naming a preferred guardian? I'll look. Please look fast. I hung up and sat in my kitchen for a while. Then I went to my desk and took out the envelope that had been sitting there untouched for 11 days. Monica Price had brought me a box of Clara's personal things, standard procedure after a passing. A few paperback books, a coffee mug from the Oregon Zoo gift shop, a child's drawing of a house with a chimney the same size as the front door. The bottom, under a folded flannel shirt that still smelled like the vanilla lotion Clara always wore, was a cream-colored envelope. Sealed. One word on the front in Clara's handwriting, the same looping cursive I knew from every birthday card she ever sent me. Birch. Nobody had called me that since we were in our 20s. I had put that envelope on my desk and not touched it for 11 days. Every morning I sat down to work and looked at it. Every night I walked past it on the way to bed. I wasn't scared of the paper. I was scared of what it would confirm, that my sister had been reaching for me from a distance I hadn't known was there. And I had been too deep in my mom's version of our family to reach back. The night Rachel called, I sat down at the kitchen table, poured a glass of water and opened it. Clara's handwriting was smaller than I remembered. Tighter. Like she was trying to fit a lot of life into not very much space. She wrote that she had gotten pregnant at 33. The dad was someone she had loved and then lost. He was gone before Rosie was born and never looked back. When she told our mom, Patricia gave her two choices. Either place the baby privately or lose the family. She said having a child without being married was an embarrassment. She said she hadn't raised us to be careless. She said if Clara kept the baby, she was on her own. Clara kept the baby. She moved to Beaverton. She got a job as a bookkeeper for a small architecture firm on Canyon Road. She raised Rosie alone in a little house with a backyard big enough for a kiddie pool in July. She didn't tell any of us. Our mom told everyone Clara had gone through something hard and needed time away. That it wasn't our place to push. I should have called you, Birch. Every year on your birthday I thought about it. But Mom told me you agreed with her. She said you thought I was being selfish. I believed her because it was easier than finding out if it was true. I had to put the letter down at that part. I pressed both hands flat on the table. My mom had told Clara I agreed with her. She had told me that Clara didn't want contact. She had built the same wall from both sides. 2 daughters. 2 lies. 1 silence that lasted 6 years. The letter ended with 2 lines I will carry for the rest of my life. I signed papers, Birch. If something happens to me, find the papers. I named you. I always trusted you more than you knew. I folded the letter. Set it next to the DNA report. Then I called Rachel. Papers were in a storage unit in Beaverton. Rachel found them through June Whitfield, a 73-year-old retired librarian who had been Clara's closest friend and neighbor on Mapleview Drive. June had been with Clara at the end. She had a key to the storage unit. She had been waiting for someone to call. She drove to Rachel's office herself with a box of Clara's documents and spent 45 minutes telling Rachel everything. She had been one of the witnesses when Clara signed the guardianship papers. The document was notarized at a UPS store on SW Canyon Road in Beaverton by a notary named Paul Whitmore, who confirmed everything when Rachel's office called. Clara had signed it 4 weeks before she died. It named me, Cassidy Monroe, as Rosie's designated guardian if anything happened to Clara. Page 2 changed everything. Under the exclusions section, Clara had written 3 separate paragraphs. She excluded Patricia Monroe. Reason: my mom pressured me to give up my daughter at birth and has refused to acknowledge her existence for 6 years. I do not believe she would act in Rosie's best interest. She excluded Garrett and Denise Monroe. Reason: my brother and his wife showed no interest in my well-being or my daughter's well-being during my illness and have no relationship with my child. She named me. 1 sentence. Cassidy is the only person in my family who was always kind, even when she didn't know the full story. Rachel read it to me over the phone. When she got to that last line, I asked her to read it again. She did. This changes the whole case, Rachel said. Courts give serious weight to a parent's documented wishes. With the DNA and your financial picture, Cassidy, this is a very strong filing. I thanked her. Hung up. Sat in my car in the parking garage for a while doing nothing in particular, which is basically my version of falling apart. Are you still with me? 'Cause we are not done yet. Drop a still here in the comments so I know you're watching. And tell me, what city are you in right now? Columbus? Houston? London? I want to know who this story is reaching tonight. There was something else in column C. Clara's estate, a paid-off house in Beaverton worth around $240,000, a life insurance policy through her employer for $80,000 payable to Rosie's legal guardian, and Social Security survivor benefits for a minor child, around $1,500 a month until Rosie turned 18. None of that is a fortune. But to someone carrying credit card debt and a taste for other people's money, it looked like a lifeline with a child attached. I pulled the estate account activity from the probate records. What I found was a federal benefits application, filed 6 weeks after Clara's death, requesting that Rosie's survivor benefits be redirected to a named bank account. The application had been filed before Rosie had a legal guardian, before any court had awarded anyone custody, before anyone had the legal right to touch a single dollar of that child's money. Copy I received had the name field blacked out, pending the probate court's review. I didn't need to wait for it. I already had a short list of people who knew about the benefits, had a reason to want them, and had filed a competing guardianship petition. 2 names. Rachel officially requested the full unredacted version through the court. Garrett Monroe, co-signed by Denise Monroe, requesting Rosie's monthly survivor benefits, $1,500 a month, be sent to their joint checking account. Reason given, interim care costs for the minor child. Except Rosie was in foster care with Gail. Garrett and Denise had not fed her a single meal. They had not driven her to one appointment. They had not bought her a pair of shoes or a juice box or a single animal cracker. There were 0 care costs because there was 0 care. There were, however, 2 deposits totaling $3,000 that had cleared their account before the Social Security Administration flagged the application and put a hold on it. I printed everything. The application, the bank records, the timeline. I laid it all on my desk in order by date, the way I do with every fraud case I've ever built. 6 years of silence. A little girl in foster care. And somebody already filling out paperwork to get at her money before the grass had grown on her mom's grave. I put it all in a folder. Labeled it Exhibit D. This is what column C was for. Keep watching. 2 weeks before the hearing, Garrett and Denise's attorney filed a motion claiming I had manipulated Rosie's attachment to me for personal gain and requesting that my visitation be suspended. I read it at 9 in the morning with a cup of coffee that went cold before I reached the second page. Personal gain. The phrase was too careful for Garrett. The angle was too calculated for Denise. This had my mom's thinking behind it. I could feel her in it the way you feel a draft and know which window it came from. The motion was denied inside of a week. The judge noted that Monica Price had submitted positive reports from every single supervised visit and found no grounds for the claims. But it had done what it was built to do. It was a signal. They were going to come at my character. They were counting on me to blow up, raise my voice, give them something messy to point at. I didn't blow up. I updated the file. The night before the hearing, my mom knocked on my door. No call. No warning. Just 2 knocks at 8:20 p.m., and she was standing on my porch in her good charcoal coat, the one she wears to church in situations she considers serious. I let her in. You don't leave your 64-year-old mom outside in October, even when she's a big part of why you haven't slept right in a week. She sat at my kitchen table. I poured her water. She didn't drink it. I was 22 when I had Clara, she said. No lead up, just the words. Your dad and I weren't married yet. His family barely spoke to me for 2 years. My own mom told me I had ruined everything. She turned the glass in her hands. I built something respectable after that. 30 years of it. And then Clara made the same choice I did, and I couldn't watch it happen again. I looked at her. I saw, for just a second, not the woman who had erased my niece's existence, but a 22-year-old girl who had been told her baby was a problem, who had decided the only way to survive was to make sure that story never showed up in her life again. I understood her. For about 2 seconds, I genuinely understood her. Then the 2 seconds passed. She didn't make a mistake, Mom. She had a daughter. And you told her to throw that daughter away to keep your reputation clean. Her face went flat and tight the way it does when she has decided the conversation is beneath her. I was protecting this family. You were protecting yourself. And now there is a 6-year-old who thinks she was never supposed to exist. She stood, put on her coat, walked out without touching the water. I wrote down every word she said. Then I added it to the file. Multnomah County Courthouse, Portland. 3rd floor. Dark wood, tall windows, a judge's bench that looked like it had been settling arguments since before I was born. I wore the navy blazer I wear to depositions, clean, no fuss, the kind of outfit that says I am not here for drama. I laid out my 6 exhibits on the table. 47 pages. Every date checked. Every number confirmed. Every claim with a source. Rachel had reviewed the whole packet twice and told me it was the strongest guardianship filing she had put before a judge in 12 years. I didn't feel clean. I felt like a woman who was about to walk into a room and take her own family apart with paperwork. But then I thought about Rosie in that doorway the week before, arms at her sides, hearing her grandmother say she was never supposed to exist. I picked up the folder, put it in my bag, walked in. Garrett and Denise arrived with their attorney, a man named Mitchell Ford who wore a very expensive watch and spoke in prepared paragraphs. My mom sat behind them in the gallery, not a named party, just a presence. Consultant. In the 2nd row of the gallery quietly was June Whitfield. She had asked Rachel if she could come. Rachel had said yes. I had not expected that. I won't pretend it didn't matter. Judge Sandra Llewellyn looked like someone who had seen every version of family dysfunction and stopped being surprised by any of it a long time ago. Mitchell Ford went first. He was good. He painted Garrett and Denise warm, the school district, the community ties, the stable 2-parent home. He painted me cold. Single. Career-driven. No experience raising a child. No family around me. He said with a pause for effect, Ms. Monroe has spent her adult life building a career, not a family, Your Honor. This child needs roots. Not a filing cabinet. My mom nodded from the gallery. Rachel stood up. She handed the judge a bound copy of our filing and said, Your Honor, I'd like to enter into evidence a notarized designation of standby guardian, executed by Rosie's mom, Clara Monroe, for weeks prior to her death. Mitchell Ford leaned forward. Denise's smile went out like a light switched off. Rachel read the whole document out loud. The naming of me. The exclusion of Patricia with the reasons. The exclusion of Garrett and Denise with the reasons. Then she read Clara's closing line. Cassidy is the only person in my family who was always kind, even when she didn't know the full story. She let that sit for 2 full seconds. Then she entered the DNA. The birth certificate. Monica's visit reports, 7 of them, all positive. The state's notification to Patricia, signed and acknowledged 10 weeks before any family member called me. She walked the judge through that timeline and asked one question. We asked the court to consider why, during the 10 weeks between that notification and my client's accidental encounter with her niece at a grocery store, no family member thought to tell her. The room got quiet. Then Rachel entered Exhibit D. She walked the judge through it the way I would walk a client through a suspicious general ledger. No emotion, just the order of events. The date Clara died. The date the benefits application was filed. The names on the signature line. The bank deposits. The hold from the Social Security Administration. 2 deposits totaling $3,000 into a personal checking account. No child in their care. No care expenses. Just the money. Mitchell Ford objected. Judge Llewellyn overruled. Then my mom stood up. She stood up in the gallery without being asked or called. And she said, loud enough for the court reporter to catch every word, "This is what happens when you let people dig into things that should have stayed buried." "Ma'am," Judge Llewellyn said. "Sit down." My mom did not sit. I did what any mom would do. I protected this family from a situation that... "Ma'am, sit down." She sat. Denise was crying. Garrett stared at the table. June Whitfield sat in the second row with her hands folded in her lap and her chin up, completely still, the way people get when they've been waiting a long time for a room to finally hear what they already knew. Rachel looked at me. "Would you like to add anything, Ms. Monroe?" I stood. No grip on the table. No deep breath for effect. I just stood straight and still the way I stand in depositions. "Your Honor, I'm a financial fraud investigator. I own my condo. I have no debt. I'm not telling you this because money is the point. I'm telling you because money is exactly the point for the people across from me." I looked at the judge directly. Clara's estate includes a paid-off house, a life insurance policy, and survivor benefits for Rosie. I'm asking the court to put every dollar of it into a protected trust managed by an independent person. Not me. I don't control the money. I don't receive the money. Trust covers Rosie's needs, school, health care, her future. That's it. The money is hers, not mine. I paused. My sister raised her daughter alone for 6 years because our family told her that daughter was something to be ashamed of. My sister is gone. But she left a notarized document that says she trusted me. She left a letter addressed to a nickname only she ever used for me. And she left a little girl who walked into a grocery store, saw my face, and held out a stuffed rabbit like she'd been saving it. Rosie has a family now. It's me. I sat down. Rachel put her hand on my arm. Mitchell Ford closed his binder. Judge Llewellyn reviewed everything. Then she ruled. Temporary guardianship of Rosie Monroe was granted to Cassidy Monroe, effective immediately. Review hearing in 6 months for permanent status. Court ordered an independent investigation into the unauthorized benefits application filed by Garrett and Denise Monroe. Court authorized a protected trust for Rosie per my request, pending the appointment of an independent money manager. And then Judge Llewellyn said one more thing. The court notes that this child's mom took deliberate, documented steps to provide for her daughter's future. This child was not forgotten. She was planned for. This court will honor that. Denise left first. Straight out the door, didn't look at Garrett once, which told me more about their marriage than anything in their legal filing. Garrett followed with his hands in his pockets and his shoulders forward, the look of a man who understood he had lost something bigger than a court case. My mom stayed in the gallery a moment after the room cleared. She looked at me once. I looked back. For 1 second, I didn't see the woman who had built a wall from both sides of the same family. I saw someone who had been hurt and had decided to make sure it never showed, even if that meant hurting everyone around her to do it. I understood it. I just couldn't excuse it. She straightened her coat and walked out the side door without a word. I went into the hallway. Rosie was on a bench with Gail, swinging her feet, Biscuit loose in her hand. She saw me come through the door and slid off the bench before I could even cross the room. I got down on one knee. She put both hands on my face, the way little kids do when they want to check if something is real. "Hi," she said. "Hi," I said. "Are we done?" she said. "Yeah, baby. We're done." She nodded once, satisfied, the way she does when something makes sense to her. Then she held Biscuit out so I could see his tag. "Rosie Monroe." "You're the one who called," she said. "I found you instead," I said. She thought about it. "That's okay too." Behind her, Gail was crying very quietly, which she would absolutely deny. If this moment hit you, please share this video right now. Share it with someone who needs to hear that being found is possible. Comment your city below. I want to know how far this story has traveled. And if you are not subscribed to Silent Revenge yet, do it right now. 'Cause every single story on this channel is for people who stayed quiet and still came out standing. The months after were quieter. That was fine. Rosie moved into the second bedroom of my condo in November. I had been using it as a home office, filing cabinet, extra monitor, the evidence of a life organized entirely around work. I cleared it in an afternoon. Rosie picked out a comforter covered in small yellow suns. She said she didn't want a theme room. Just her room. That was the smartest design thinking I had ever heard. She wanted a nightlight. She wanted strawberry milk in the fridge all the time, the small cartons with the foil straw. I kept a case of them on the bottom shelf where she could reach without asking. June Whitfield drove down from Beaverton twice in December. She brought photos, Clara and Rosie at a pumpkin patch, Clara and Rosie at the Oregon Zoo, Clara at the kitchen table in the Beaverton house, laughing at something off camera, a coffee mug in her hand. I framed the kitchen table photo and hung it in the living room. Rosie stood in front of it for a long time the first morning she noticed it. "She's laughing," Rosie said. "She laughed a lot," I said. "She was funny." "I know," Rosie said. "She made up silly words for things." "I know," I said. "She used to call me Birch." Rosie turned and looked at me with big eyes. "She called me Birchling." I don't fully have a word for what that felt like. Clara had been passing something forward in the names she made up, even when she couldn't pass it in person. Now I had both halves of it. Garrett paid back the $3,000. His attorney worked out a repayment plan. The state's investigation into the benefits application moved forward slowly, the way these things do. I heard from Rachel in the spring that the findings had been referred for a formal review. I also heard, not from Rachel, from a cousin, that Garrett and Denise's marriage was not in a good place. I did not feel pleased about that. I felt tired and a little sad for my brother, who I think had mostly gone along with what his wife wanted and was now paying a price he had not fully understood when he signed his name. My mom called twice in December. I didn't answer, but I didn't block her either. I told Rachel to pass word that she could have a place in Rosie's life if she could show, over 6 months with supervision, that she was capable of putting Rosie first. No solo time until there was trust. No decisions about Rosie's story or Rosie's name or whether Rosie was supposed to exist. She had not responded yet. I was not sitting around waiting. Some rifts take years. Some never close all the way. I was learning to be okay with both. June was at my kitchen table every couple of weeks by February, drinking her coffee and laughing at the things Rosie said. Rosie had appointed her the official judge of every new recipe I tried, and June took this role with great seriousness. One evening in late February, I was washing dishes while Rosie sat at the kitchen table doing her cursive worksheet. She was learning it in school and found it deeply unfair. "Why do the letters have to touch?" she said. "They're fine separate." "That is a very solid point," I said. "It's a true point," she said and went back to it. I was drying a glass when she pushed back her chair, walked over, and set Biscuit on the counter next to the dish rack. "No drama. Just set him down." "You can keep him now," she said. I turned off the faucet. "You sure? I don't need him to be brave anymore." She said it the way kids say things that hit harder than they know. "I'm brave enough on my own." I picked up the rabbit. Turned him over. Felt the tag under my thumb one more time. Rosie Monroe. Tag that had started all of it. Portland area code, a name, a last name that matched mine, on the belly of a beat-up yellow rabbit in a grocery store on a Saturday morning. "I'm gonna put him somewhere good," I said. "The shelf," she said, pointing to the one above the stove where I had put a framed photo of Clara and Rosie's September school picture side by side. Same face. Same eyes. Same tilt of the head. Different story. I set Biscuit on the shelf between the two photos. Rosie looked at it. Nodded once. Then she went back to her deeply unfair cursive worksheet. And I stood in my kitchen, which smelled like the pasta I'd slightly overcooked and the strawberry milk she'd spilled on her placemat and mostly cleaned up herself, and I thought about the person I had been before all of this. Clean apartment. Color-coded files. Saturday mornings with nothing on the agenda and no one to answer to. A life I had built on purpose with care and told myself was enough. I had been good at it. I had been very, very good at it. And then a 5-year-old handed me a stuffed rabbit in a cereal aisle, and I found out that what I had been calling a full life was just a quiet room with no windows and no one knocking. Here's what I know now. Clara raised Rosie alone for 6 years in a house 14 minutes from my office. She was sick for 7 months before she passed, and during that time she handled everything: the notary, the paperwork, the letter, the tag on Biscuit's belly with the phone number, so that if the worst happened, Rosie would have a thread to follow home. She trusted me when she had no proof I'd show up. She trusted me based on who she believed I still was, underneath the years of silence and distance and believing our mom's version of why we had grown apart. I didn't earn that trust in advance. I couldn't have. But I want to be someone who keeps earning it every single morning I wake up in an apartment where a 5-year-old is complaining about cursive at the kitchen table. One morning in March, Rosie came downstairs before I was all the way awake. I heard the fridge open, carton crinkle, the foil straw. She padded into the living room, climbed onto the couch, and tucked her feet under my legs without asking. "Can we go to the zoo this weekend?" she said, without looking away from the window. "Miss June said there are baby otters." "Yeah," I said. "We can do that." She drank her strawberry milk. I drank my coffee. Sighed. The March light was coming through at the angle that means the season is almost ready to turn. "Cassidy." "Yeah." She leaned into my shoulder. "I like living here," she said. "Me too," I said. "Me too, Birchling." She looked up fast. "You know that word?" "Your mom made it up," I said. "For you." She looked back at the window for a moment. Then she gave that small, quiet nod she gives when something has settled into place inside of her. "She picked good," Rosie said. I put my arm around her. "Yeah," I said. "She really did. I spent years building a life I could keep under control. Clean apartment. Careful work. A reputation for finding truths that people tried to bury. I thought that was who I was, someone who kept things tidy and kept people at a safe distance. Someone who was good at enough things that she didn't need to be good at the soft ones. I wasn't wrong about myself exactly. I am good at order. I am good at sitting with the uncomfortable truth until the numbers say what people are trying to hide. That didn't stop being true just because a 5-year-old showed up and rearranged my kitchen and my whole sense of what my life was actually for. But I was wrong about one thing. Confused being self-reliant with being whole. I thought needing no one and being strong were the same thing. I had convinced myself of this so well for so long that I had stopped checking whether I was happy or just undisturbed. Rosie disturbed everything. She put crayon drawings on the fridge with my takeout menus. She left Biscuit on the bathroom counter and startled me at 6 in the morning. She asked questions about death and clouds and whether fish dream that I was genuinely not ready for on a Tuesday. She needed things from me constantly, and it was the first time in years that being needed felt like a gift instead of a drain. Because here is what nobody tells you about the life you build alone. It is very clean, very neat, very quiet. And it will never look at you across a kitchen table and say, "I like living here," in a voice that sounds like the whole world when it says it. Clara knew that about me. She knew I felt things deeply and showed them carefully, and she trusted me anyway, from a house 14 minutes away, without being able to ask if I would say yes. She built a whole safety net for her daughter out of the hope that one of us would look up from our quiet, ordered life and come find her. That's not sadness. That's love that refused to give up, even when it couldn't say so out loud. I want to be someone who deserves that kind of faith. I want Rosie to grow up watching what it looks like when a person decides that being trusted matters more than being comfortable. She already figured that out, honestly. She got there faster than I did. My sister named me. She always trusted me. And every day I wake up in this home that used to be mine and is now ours, I am going to make sure that was the right call. If this story hit you, if it reminded you that family is not always about who shares your name, but about who shows up when it counts, share this video right now. Send it to someone who needs to hear it. And I want you to drop a comment below. Tell me what city you are watching from tonight. Columbus, Ohio? Dallas, Texas? London? Karachi? Manila? Tell me. I want to know how far this one travels. If you felt something in this story, hit the like button. Takes 2 seconds and it means the world to this channel. Subscribe to Silent Revenge if you haven't yet. Every story here is for the person who stayed calm when they had every reason not to. Person who built their case quietly. Person who walked into the room, laid it all on the table, and let the truth do the talking. That is always the strongest move. See you in the next one.